Ladies and gentlemen, two people with us already on X. Guys, we covered strategy. Michael Saylor this morning was on CNBC talking about their earnings report. They smashed it. Now, I want to turn the attention to Tom Lee and Fundstrat, because not the Bitcoin treasury strategy, but the ETH one. So this is what we're focusing on. Tom Lee, just a couple hours ago, was on CoinDesk. They had a discussion. It's around 10 minutes. I'm going to do what I usually do here on the Coin Zone. We're going to run through this video. I'm going to pause at certain moments, break some things down for you guys. But let's get right into this.
I want to go back to our last interview. You made a prediction, $4,000 ETH by the end of July. Here we are at the end of July. I'm going to give you the win. We're under $200 away from that prediction. Talk to me a little bit about what needs to happen for us to get there.
Imagine being able to build anything.
Bruh.
You got to 3,900, so we're within 100. I think that's within the standard error of a prediction. But to me, Ethereum is being rejuvenated, right? Because we know the community has been galvanized, and we know that there's just an army of interest coming because of the tokenization Wall Street wants to do, and they are choosing to do it on Ethereum. So I think when you think about the future value of activity, it needs to start getting discounted on Ethereum. And I think that's why the price still needs to adjust higher. And
yeah. You know, Altcoin Daily had a post today where he said basically Ethereum's fundamental price should be over 5K. Wall Street doesn't want you to know that. And Tom Lee is right. What he's referring to is the stable coin. Stable coins over 50%. It's being built on ETH right now. A new financial system for payments is being built on ETH right now. So again, I know people think there's better versions out there. I'm a huge Cardano fan, as you guys probably know at this point. It's my biggest holding. I love ADA. Great. However, let's be realistic. ETH has the attention. All these smaller market cap ones have attention as well, but Bitcoin and ETH still number one and still number two.
I think I mentioned that if we use multiple similar to Circle, you get to 15,000-ish for ETH. And that would just be a today value. So I think ETH is still undervalued. But we also know, I mean, just from a trading perspective, look, there's a lot of people who think ETH has become sclerotic, you know, like it's a stale layer one. There's more things happening on Solana or Sui. But the reality is that ETH is a legally recognized blockchain operating within the US, and it's never had any downtime. I thought it was so interesting that Vitalik on the 10th birthday of Ethereum notes zero downtime. That matters to Wall Street. I actually think that's almost a little bit of a hat tip to Wall Street, because banks care about zero downtime. But again, as you know, there's people who have a pair. They like something else and they're short ETH. So I think 4,000 is a line in the sand.
And let me point out something too. Zero downtime is huge because you have traditional systems where that doesn't happen. Microsoft goes down sometimes. Not sometimes, but they have before. Big, you know, we've covered outages with AT&T and T-Mobile. What happens during these times? People don't have coverage. If AT&T went down, you have AT&T. You don't have cell service for a second. Now, you know, maybe it's for a minute or whatever, but these are still issues, and blockchain is helping to address some of these issues.
But to me, it's just a matter of time.
I know that you're very bullish on ETH. That you just said it's just a matter of time, but let's look at the bear case. What happens if we don't get to that $4,000 level?
I don't think it's critical. I think it's like someone who just months ago would have said, well, Bitcoin can't hold 100,000. I mean, how many people said that Bitcoin wasn't going to hold 100,000 because one, there's nothing supporting it, or there's no new buyers behind 100,000. But guess what? Bitcoin's 120,000 now. In fact, I think that there's plenty of new buyers for ETH above 4,000. So to me, I think 4,000, if someone's thinking that that's like a level of resistance that represents something super meaningful, to me, I think it's paper.
I was reading an article that quoted you recently, had you describing the recent market rebound as the most hated V-shaped bounce in history. Can you just unpack that a little bit for me?
I think every bounce since COVID has been a hated bounce, because if someone was personally realistic and introspective, they didn't believe we could recover from that initial COVID decline because the world economy shut down. And then when stocks tanked because Fed Chair Powell initiated the fastest rate hikes in history and stocks tanked in 2022, I know that every one of my institutional investors said, Tom, there's no way stocks can come back. Not every, but most, because they said the Fed is trying to engineer a recession. So those two rallies were very hated. This rally.
Let me pause there. I almost went live just now on everything that's going on with the Federal Reserve. We just saw someone step down. So there's an open board position now with the Fed. All right. We have Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, countless individuals right now inside the government that are calling for the abolishment of the Fed. Now, again, what he just said was when Jerome Powell introduced like the largest rate hikes in history, they were trying to engineer a recession. Listen to how freaking insane that sounds. A private institution that nobody voted for the Fed, that was enacted in 1913. That's a whole conspiracy within itself. No one voted for Jerome Powell, who's had this seat now for plenty of years. No one voted for these people, and they're dictating what happens with the markets. That's not what a free market is. It's insane.
Because stocks tanked because of tariff Armageddon. And we have to keep in mind that if you look at political donations or political affiliations, 60% of professional stock investors voted for not President Trump. They voted for someone else. And that means that the stock market does not believe the Trump agenda. And that's why when stocks fell in April, and we talked about a waterfall decline, having symmetric bounces unless there's a recession, it was met with skepticism because the pushback was the Fed is not going to unleash liquidity. So there's no way you're going to get a V-shaped bounce. Well, we got a V-shaped bounce. In fact, that is consistent with history. And I think what makes people really hate these rallies is that since the end of 2019, economists have become very important voices in macro decisions for correct reasons. Economists help you decide how an economy behaves when you shut it down, or how you deal with inflation, or how you deal with tariffs. So they are obviously important voices. But when economists start to tell you that you have a recession and therefore you shouldn't own stocks, keep in mind economists have predicted like 13 of the last 3 recessions. So
thank you. And we talked about this on yesterday's live. There's so many economists out there. Paul Krugman is an example that comes to the top of my mind. Some of these guys are bought and paid for that spin a certain narrative that is not true. Why did all of these guys get it wrong when it came to Trump the past 7 months or so? They all said a recession/a depression might be on the way, that stocks are going to tank. Well, guess what? NASDAQ, S&P, all-time highs. Bitcoin, all-time highs. Right now, we're in a position for the Fed to be able to lower the rates, but he didn't.
So I think that has made this the most hated rally. And that's why, of course, once we broke to new highs, stocks have been levitating, and there's still a lot of cash on the sidelines. That whole analog applies to Ethereum, by the way.
God, this, no one cares.
We're going to see a lot of new buyers above the $4,000 level when it comes to ETH. What do you think when it comes to Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin has now become accepted enough that it's part of people's steady buying. I think there's plenty of now traditional finance investors stacking Bitcoin, and they're buying it every month. And I think that's why it's holding steady here. And to me, for Bitcoin really to make its next quantum move, I do think it's dependent on global liquidity. And so the Fed, as you know, is on hold. But if their next move is to hike, then the entire stock market really is going to have to fight through that. It won't necessarily decline, but it has to fight that. And that Fed argument there would be, well, the economy is so healthy, I should be raising rates. But the reality is, at this point in the cycle, the Fed should be easing. It's a question of when. And if they begin easing in the fall, then I think that's going to coincide with Bitcoin making a step function higher. And I still think 200 to 250,000 is possible.
Yeah, let's pause there. I for sure agree with that. And I've even heard people go as far as saying, you know what, I hope Jerome holds off until the end of the year, until next year. Reasons being is you're pretty much creating that recipe. Just like they said the Fed can dictate things. They wanted to engineer a recession. Tom Lee just said that. In the opposite respect, if Jerome Powell ended up waiting to lower rates by 2026, then that actually might kick off something spectacular for the entire year of 2026. Because personally, I think that we are going to continue to see all-time highs and stocks and crypto perform very well next year. So if you are continuing to aid in that, not now, But 6 months from now, I mean, it could just be a recipe to make everything go to the moon next year and have next year just being an incredible year for stocks for most markets. But at the same rate, I don't think that's what anyone wants. And realistically, we should be lowering the rates now.
Bitcoin, the last time I spoke to you, which was probably about 2 weeks ago, so 200 to 250,000 by the end of the year. After I spoke to you, Rick Edelman joined me on the show. His prediction was 500,000 by 2030. It feels like yours might be a little bit more bullish than that if we look at the next 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I think Rick's probably has a range of numbers. I'm sure 500,000 is just one of the realm of possibilities, because if Bitcoin gets to 500,000 and we're talking 5 years from now, gold's network value probably is close to 27, 28 trillion. So he's just saying Bitcoin will be valued at 1/3 as digital gold, merely as digital gold. And so I think that's conservative. I mean, I think it won't take 5 years for Bitcoin to supplant the network value of gold. So that's why I think.
That's insane. So Tom Lee's saying he doesn't. Let's listen to that again. I got to hear that again.
Gold merely as digital gold. And so I think that's conservative. I mean, I think it won't take 5 years for Bitcoin to supplant the network value of gold. So that's why I think when you see something like Kathy.
All right, perspective, guys. Right now, Bitcoin's close to a $3 trillion market cap, 2.5, something like that. Gold is like 22 trillion. So if he just said he doesn't think it's going to take 5 years for that gap to be freaking gapped, I don't even know. I can't think today, guys. If it's going to take less than 5 years for Bitcoin to jump to 2.5 trillion to 22 trillion, I mean, we're going to be 500K easily plus $1 million per coin. And that's on par with a lot of people's predictions. Michael Saylor obviously being one of them.
Would at ARK predict over $1 million for Bitcoin? That, to me, 5 years from now makes more sense.
I want to pivot a little bit now and talk about BitMine. That was the focus of our conversation last time you were on, and there's been an update there. BitMine recently approved a $1 billion stock buyback program that was approved by the board. Talk me through the strategy behind this.
Well, BitMine's strategy, and by the way, BitMine, the goal and the sort of near-term sort of target is for the company to acquire 5% of Ethereum. Because we think that there is a lot of network value and alchemy that happens at 5%. The real focus of the business is to use capital markets and other ways to acquire roughly 5% of Ethereum. And the company, as of its latest update, had 625,000.
So Tom Lee just said he wants to have 5% of Ethereum. That is a bigger market share than Strategy has of Bitcoin. I think they're at around 3% right now. With Strategy and BlackRock combined, I think that's closer to 4 or 5%. But if Tom Lee's saying that BitMine, they want to have 5% of ETH, what do you think that's going to do to ETH's price action? And this is just one company. There's more that are doing the same thing now.
And with cash, almost $2.8 billion worth of ETH. But there are going to be times where the stock might actually be at a level where the best use of capital is to buy back shares. Now, I don't think it's prudent for the company to say this is the price where that would happen or when we're doing it. But it is a toolkit. And of course, BitMine has plenty of liquidity available because the company has no debt. Or I think the legacy has like $1 million of debt from its last 10Q, but it really is essentially a debt-free company.
Are you able to tell me a little bit more about what signals tell you it's time to prioritize a buyback over accumulating more ETH? What goes into that decision-making process?
Well, I really shouldn't be more specific than that, because that I think I want to stick with what is in the press release, but that really gives everyone pretty good information.
All right, and Tom, the last thing I want to hit with you, we're starting to see some of those Q2 earnings reports coming in. What are you watching when it comes to crypto equities when we look at the Robinhoods, the Circles, the Coinbase? What's standing out to you?
First of all, I would say that if I was just to overlay what I see as activity, and that's what's being reported by exchanges, and Robinhood, as you said correctly, is essentially really geared as a crypto play. To me, it doesn't seem late cycle. I think it's actually possibly mid-cycle for crypto. But then I've heard some people say that this crypto cycle could be changing because there's now institutional involvement. And as you
Let's pause there. So he just mentioned Robinhood. Robinhood is another player that's building a platform on top of Ethereum. And not only that, they just offered ETH and Solana staking on their platform. BlackRock is urging the SEC, which I think they just did yesterday, 2 days ago, to approve ETH staking for these institutions. We saw a BlackRock executive leave and go to SharpLink. Now all of SharpLink's holdings with ETH. SharpLink's another one. They're buying a crap ton of ETH too. They're staking it all. So, I mean, guys, it's the whole point of this episode. It's undeniable now that the network effect has completely been successful for Bitcoin, not only with retail, but now with the largest institutions in the freaking world and the biggest country in the world, with the biggest economy in the world, the United States. Obviously, El Salvador, China is starting to get into it now. All right. The entire world, Bhutan just announced an agreement, I think, with El Salvador. Everybody around the world, whether it's South America, Europe, Asia, North America, the entire world is starting to get in on Bitcoin. And that's starting to happen now with ETH. Insane.
When you look at a traditional cycle for a risk asset in public markets, not in crypto, there's four cohorts that ultimately drive the top in a price cycle. It's retail, it's high net worth, it's institutions, and then it's family offices. And until all four cohorts are really all in on a sector, you never see a peak. And that's excluding the global aspect of crypto. So to me, I think that there's been robust results reported, but I think to me, especially when I look at the sponsorship and ownership of equities like Coinbase or Robinhood, it still doesn't feel late cycle.
Thanks so much for joining the show today.
Yeah. Well, wanted to go over that, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I want to share as well before we get out here. It's everybody's favorite crypto entertainer. Maybe not everyone's favorite, but if you've been in this space, you might know this man. Interesting man. Alex Becker. You can love him, you can hate him. Doesn't matter. But I want to go over this post that he had because I think it's actually really smart, and I do agree with this. So we're going to look at a post. Someone commented on the post. He responded. I think it's worth mentioning and looking at this point in time right now where we're at in the cycle. Let's go ahead and take a look at this post by Alex Becker. If you doubt alts, read this. I believe it will make anyone who gets it the big bucks this bull. The reason alts will give the best returns from here is because they are extremely hard to hold for most. 100% true. And this is why individuals never got into crypto to begin with, because it's too volatile. You're holding crap, shit coins, whatever. Correct. The massive uncertainty is the entire reason you can buy them and do a 5 to 10 to 15 to 50x. Everyone agrees that Bitcoin and ETH are strong assets likely to go up. That's exactly why the gains are minimal. And I think a great example of this is Dogecoin last cycle. Dogecoin last cycle was still some speculative. Meme coins weren't really a big thing yet. It was like Doge and Shiba. Everyone was like, this is stupid. Who cares? If I'm going to get into crypto, why not throw $100 on Doge, right? Who knows what can happen? Well, it actually went up. I know someone personally who made over $10,000. They put in like $750, right? Because it's that speculative. It's a meme coin. Nobody 4+ years ago, only if you were in crypto, believed that it actually had value. Most people jumped in because it's like a lottery ticket. It's like, oh, maybe I can make $1 million off this. That's that speculation that he's talking about. So if you want real gains, you have to seek fear, doubt, and disagreement on value. 100% right. That's what causes the market to radically underprice the asset and then also radically overprice it when it starts to move. You buy alts for massive gains, and the reason they can produce massive gains is the very reason they're so much harder to hold than stocks or Bitcoin. 100% right. If you've been in crypto for the past couple of years, you've for sure seen your portfolio drop down significantly, whether you were in on anything, right? From 2021 to 2022-ish, 23-ish, or 23 at some point, right? Bitcoin went down to 16K. So you watch it go from 64 to 16. That's big. and alts went down even further. So yes, most traditional investors can't stomach something like that. So if you are in here, you're crazy ass. You're going to benefit from it. So let's keep it going. You need solid conviction because the charts will give you nothing but fear and doubt until they don't, and everyone over agrees and massively overvalues the asset. Hold the hot effing gates. Yeah. So this was a great response here too as well. I want to take a look. Jordan, self-sovereign. I think this is a good answer or response to what he said. The problem is, Alex, that many of these projects will fail to get adoption quick enough to survive if this fabled altcoin season doesn't come soon. No adoption, no revenue, no project, no team. It's already happened to dozens of projects you've shilled in the past couple of years. I think that's a fair question, right? That's a fair statement. However, there's a million cryptos and crypto companies that I can think of right now that will not see a big influx in adoption over the next 6 months or so, or a year or so, when we're anticipating this altcoin season to happen, and they're not going to go under. You know, even if they do. Let's read this. He's spot on here. He's spot on here. And I think you have to always zoom out from a overall investing standpoint, not just a crypto standpoint. And it's good that someone like Alex Becker, who has experience in TradFi, that's the perspective that he's bringing here. First statement, first sentence. This is so weird to have to explain. The entire space is vaporware. He's right. There are so many good projects out there in crypto. Not denying that. Kudos to all you companies doing legit things. But still, 90% of it is trash. There's over like 20,000 cryptos now. 2021, there was like 3,000 or something, right? So like every day, there's like 100, like, I don't know, I can't give you an exact number, but it's probably like 100,000 plus cryptos just entering the space. I don't even know. Like, I don't know the exact number, 1,000 a day, something like that. It's probably like something like that. It's rapidly increasing. The ICO era, 2017, kind of kicked things off. Since then, it's just been insane. The adoption of top coins is all that's needed for massive over speculation. In all mid to low cap coins, people literally don't care. 100% right. What is the first metric that we look at when we're going into an altcoin season, trying to determine when that's coming? It's Bitcoin dominance. So how does that correlate? Well, it correlates because people normally take their Bitcoin gains and put it into alts. So he's exactly right. You just need the adoption of top coins for most of this space to go insane. Because once things start moving, people start shifting money around. Hype, FOMO, all these random shit gets thrown into the mix, and your favorite coin can go crazy, or some random ass coin can go crazy. It's how it's always worked in this space. The function is speculation based on the movement of other coins. Exactly. It's always worked like this in the speculative tech assets. This is even true for TradFi assets. This is Crypto 101 and the most base level of alts. I got to agree with Alex Becker on this one, guys. I really do. So we covered Tom Lee. We covered Alex Becker. It's a Friday afternoon, August 1st, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say it once. My name is Crypto with Paul. This is the Coin Zone. If you guys haven't subbed on YouTube, please do that for me. I know most of you guys are watching on X right now. Appreciate you guys for tapping in. But, you know, obviously we do more than lives. We have educational videos coming out. We have one brand new one that just came out today. So go check that one out. And that's what we're always doing. So make sure to sub, guys. Just wanted to hop on real quick, talk to you guys before I end my day here on this Friday. I appreciate you guys for tapping in. Hold your bags. Don't sell into BlackRock. Things are red right now. Things are looking down right now, right? Everything is red in crypto right now, despite all this positive news and sentiment. Don't be that individual that gets shaken out and scared and you sell, because BlackRock will buy it and you don't want to lose to them. I'm hopeful that you were in crypto before BlackRock, when Larry Fink was still calling it a scam. So don't poop your pants. Chill the F out. Hold your bags and sub to the Coin Zone. That's all I have for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Crypto with Paul. See you guys again soon. Have a good weekend, everybody.